Welcome to Bold Leaders, Actionable Solutions, a video series presented by Ella Group and the Society for Human Resources Management, SHRM. I'm Janice Ellig, CEO of Ella Group. We are a global executive and board search leadership and advisory firm with a 40-plus year track record of supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion. Johnny Taylor, CEO of SHRM, a global professional association of human resources professionals, with over 300,000 members representing nearly 120 million employees, joins me today in thanking all of you for taking the time to consider how senior executives and board directors can accelerate gender and racial diversity in America's boardrooms. Today's program is one of 6 that we plan to release in the coming weeks based on a white paper of the same name published in the winter of 2020. Earlier this year, Johnny and I were honored to host an impressive group of experienced CEOs and corporate board members to talk about boardroom diversity and share candid insights around challenges and potential solutions to enhance the composition of boards. Our video series will bring to life the white paper, where CEOs and directors will share their insights with all of you. And that is what we are going to do today. To receive the paper, Bold Leaders, Actionable Solutions, simply go to our website, ellagroup.com, or email inquiries@ellagroup.com, and we will send you a copy. Today, I'm joined by 2 exceptional business leaders, Teresa Rasmussen and Maryann Bruce. Terry is president and CEO of Thriven, a Fortune 500 financial services organization helping people achieve financial clarity so they can live lives full of meaning and gratitude. Prior to becoming president and CEO of Thriven, Terry led the company's core life, health, and annuities business, and earlier served as senior VP, general counsel, and secretary. In addition to serving on Thriven's board of directors, Terry also serves on the boards of H.B. Fuller, a multi-billion-dollar global adhesives and specialty chemical company, the Walker Art Museum, a world-renowned contemporary art museum in Minneapolis, and the American Council of Life Insurers. Maryann Bruce, after a 30-year career in the financial services industry, she has turned her experience and expertise to board service. Over the past decade, she has served on a dozen public, private, mutual fund, and nonprofit boards, and currently serves as a director on the Amalgamated Bank Board and on the Real Blocks Advisory Board. In addition of her leadership and expertise, Maryann was honored by directors and boards as one of 20 accomplished female board members in 2017 Directors to Watch, and was named by U.S. Banker one of the 25 most powerful women in banking for her business vision, personal excellence, and professional integrity when she was president of Evergreen Investment Services, a division of Wachovia. I've had the pleasure of working with Terry and Maryann and can say from personal experiences that both are deeply committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion by their actions and their words. Thank you to our panelists for joining me today. And I wanted to start off the conversation because there's so much in the press about diversity, equity, and inclusion. How have the conversations changed around the board table that you're at over the years, today versus maybe 4 or 5 years ago? Terry, let me start with you.
Well, Janice, it's great to be here with you and Maryann today. And I have personally seen how conversations have shifted from really talking about diversity for the sake of diversity, which can lead to representation without true inclusion, to boards now truly starting to value and see the full potential from the rich perspectives, the conversations and decisions that can happen when there is diversity and inclusion in the boardroom. And I do think boardrooms are continuing to get better and better at not only seeking diversity, but really being welcoming and inclusive too. So I like to talk about this in the context of a concept I call the power of 3. The idea is when you have 3 voices in the room that are different from the majority, those voices will be heard. I remember experiencing this firsthand when our board of directors went from having 2 women to 3. And the same thing when I was general counsel and we had 3 diverse voices in the general counsel's office. When there are 3 or more voices, they get heard. And that's where I believe we are now. Diverse voices are being heard and they're helping to drive significant and meaningful outcomes for organizations.
Maryann, your experiences in those conversations.
Well, thank you, Janice, for inviting me to participate today. And thank you, Terry. And I'm not surprised you talked about the power of 3, because that was one of the things I was going to say later in the program. So I'm glad you brought it up. But to me, in the past, the benefits of a diverse board were probably not very widely known or understood. But today, boards recognize the value of boardroom diversity, including how more diverse boards are linked with overall better performance. And they realize that the status quo is no longer acceptable because pressure for change is coming from all different sides, from regulators, from investors, from activists, from proxy advisory firms, from asset managers to stock exchanges. Everyone's calling for America's boardrooms to be more diverse. And the good news is that the boards are committed to and implementing change. For example, I've seen several boards make the strategic decision to increase the size of the board to achieve greater diversity. And they've also taken steps such as evaluating their onboarding process to ensure that these diverse board members are properly integrated into and included in the board's activities. And in addition, we've seen companies like JP Chase, Goldman Sachs get more involved and promote diversity. Specifically, they've started board advisory practices to help place directors on the boards of their IPO clients, many of whom are diverse. And I personally was the beneficiary of one of those efforts. JP Chase introduced me to Amalgamated Bank when they were looking for directors before they went public back in August of 2018, and I've been serving on the board ever since. So I absolutely agree with Terry's comments, and I'm thrilled that boards are really making an effort to drive change.
Right, change has been somewhat slow, but it's picking up, we see a little bit. And I look at the Thriven board, Terry, and I see, 7 women and 2 diverse candidates or directors. And I think, wow, you've been there for a while. This isn't new. This isn't just yesterday. So what has driven that discussion to get you to have such a diverse board? And why are you so personally committed to it, both in the boardroom and in the C-suite?
Well, it's really important, and it is a journey. I would emphasize it as a journey. Diversity in the boardroom is something we've really long valued at Thriven. In fact, we first named a woman on our board in 1975. We want a board that's representative of who we serve. So we know women account for about half of our clients currently, and so we should have half of our board be women, and we do. 7 of our 14 board members are women, including our chair. Ensuring that we have a board that has many facets of diversity really helps us continue to make good governance decisions, and it positions our organization for relevance and growth for the future.
That's really great with a female chair and a female CEO of a company. There are not too many out there like that. So congratulations. And again, This has been longstanding with Thriven. So really a model for others to follow. Maryann, you are on the Amalgamated Board, and you also have a female chair on that board. So what are the discussions at Amalgamated that are on diversity, equity, inclusion that really have impacted that company?
Well, let me start by saying it is highly unusual to have 2 panelists where both chairs are females. You had to do a really good job to make that happen, Janice. But yes, I've had the honor and privilege of serving on the Amalgamated Bank Board, which has a female chair and is also comprised of 50% diverse directors. So like Thriven, this is something we've been committed to a long time. Amalgamated has almost a 100-year anniversary. It's coming up in a couple of years. We started off as a union bank, and so we've always been pro-employees, pro-diversity, pro-inclusion. Specifically today, we have 12 directors. 1 is a man of color, 5 are women, including a woman of color and a member of the LGBT community. So I've experienced the benefits of diversity and inclusion in the boardroom firsthand. And to me, the primary difference is that our chair goes out of her way to ensure that all directors' voices are heard, not just the loudest voice. And as Terry mentioned before, that those voices are valued and heard. Our chair encourages everybody to provide multiple points of view, which we believe leads to better decision-making. She also ensures that the decisions aren't dominated by one or two board members. She tends to focus on cooperation, collaboration, and consensus building more often than I've seen in boards where I've had male chairs, and she does it more effectively. And the last thing I'd say is that she always keeps the bank's mission, which is empowering institutions and individuals to advance positive social change, front and center whenever we're discussing the company's strategy, the culture, as well as human capital management and development. So as a result, I feel our board discussions and our deliberations are extremely thoughtful, and they're enriching, leading to better and more informed and effective outcomes.
Well, I've had the honor of working with both Amalgamated and Thriven, and I can, attest that both organizations, both of you, are deeply committed to ensuring diversity, equity, inclusion at all levels, the board level and in the C-suite. So you, again, are setting the pace for others to follow. Now, when you go to find board directors, Terry, you mentioned in the white paper that we did, Bold Leaders, Actionable Solutions, that you cast a very wide net and sourcing candidates for the board. Can you tell us about that process a little bit?
I would love to, Janice. And so Thriven is a client-owned financial services organization. And in addition to our national board of directors, we have 23 regional boards composed of leaders in communities throughout the United States. So this unique structure has allowed us to recruit board members from a diverse pool of talent across the country. In our board, we've achieved a nice balance of members who progressed in leadership roles from the regional member network level, as well as clients who are passionate about supporting our purpose. This model allows us to support and really nurture future leaders of the board and equip them with a skill set that can positively contribute to good governance. We also involve our workforce by asking our financial professionals and our engagement teams and communities to really help us identify people who would be good candidates for our regional boards. And that process has connected us to people who add diverse perspectives and experiences to our regional and our national boards. So we kind of get the whole organization involved in searching for great board members.
Well, particularly when you want diversity, you have to go to those diverse communities through the sources, that are there, right? So whether it be brown, white, Black, women, you need to go to those communities. And that's what you're doing, casting this really broad net. So that is something that we advocate for in our search practices as well, working with our clients such as you. Maryann, in the white paper, you talked about board refreshment and the need to really assess directors beyond the age or tenure that they have on the board. Why is that so important?
Janice, as you said, having the right individuals in the boardroom is critical. And most boards rely on a mandatory retirement age, often as high as 75, or set explicit term limit policies such as 15 years to promote turnover. They often approach director succession planning in a reactive, episodic manner when the board needs to replace a retiring director. So this is problematic because underperforming and or disruptive directors are essentially given what I call a free pass. In fact, in a recent 2020 study by PwC and Spencer Stewart revealed that 49% of directors believe someone on their board should be replaced, and 21% of those directors believe 2 or more directors should be replaced. And to make matters worse, the C-suite executives were even more critical of directors. The same survey revealed that more than 4 in 5, an astonishing 82%, said that at least one of their company board members should be replaced. And 43% of the C-suite said 2 or more directors needed to go. Now you may be asking why. The primary reason cited in the research was because directors overstepped their role from oversight to management. They were reluctant to challenge management. They may have had a personal style that negatively affected the board dynamics, as well as an advanced age may have led to diminished performance. So that's why I strongly believe that boards need to take a more strategic approach and a more rigorous approach to their annual assessment process to drive refreshment, measure individual director performance and effectiveness, and to raise the overall performance of the board as well as the individual directors. In the past, boards had this expectation, or directors had this expectation, that the renominations were automatic. We need to make sure that that's no longer the place. It shouldn't be like a Supreme Court justice position where once you're appointed, you're there for life or you're there until you pass away. That's not the best standard. So we need to make sure that directorships are based on high performance from individual directors. And probably the best way to do that is to make sure that you have a board skills assessment. You need to make sure that you create a metrics that assesses the skills and the attributes of the current directors and how they compare to those for the future strategy of the company. Because what's good today may not be what's good in the future. And you want to make sure that if there are any skill gaps that you identify, that you fill those gaps with the new directors to ensure long-term alignment. So board and director assessments should be viewed, in my opinion, as a continuous improvement exercise. It's not one and done, it's ongoing. And more importantly, you need to use the results and the feedback from the annual board assessment and the committee assessment and the individual director's assessment. And it should be incorporated into the director succession planning process. I also feel that when these are done in a meaningful way, they can help determine if one or two or more directors warrant some additional counseling, or they can help identify, as I mentioned earlier, whether we need to add new expertise or skills to the board or greater diversity for that matter. So the bottom line is that a strategic approach to board succession planning delivers positive benefits to overall board and individual director performance, and it increases long-term shareholder value if it's done in a thoughtful, systematic, rigorous way.
Well, you gave us some really important statistics there in terms of how colleagues believe that they need to refresh their board and many need to be replaced. I recently was chatting with a female CEO, and she said that in a prior search that she had done, not with us, but for her board, she told the search firm, don't give me anybody else with insurance background. I have plenty of insurance expertise on the board. I need an all-around great athlete because I don't know the business I'm going to be in down the road. It can change, so there are things that are coming around the corner that you really do want, that really strong strategic thinker that can look at things differently than they have in the past.
And Janice, to add to that, in the old days, the number one criteria that people looked for in a board directorship was a sitting CEO or a former CEO. Well, I would argue if you have 10 CEOs sitting around the room, that's not a very diverse board. Not to mention, if I was the CEO, I probably wouldn't like a board like that because they'd all be telling me what I'm supposed to be doing. But it just reinforces your point. Not everybody on the board needs to be the subject matter expert of the industry that the company's in. You need to have some generalists who can bring wealth of experience, oversight, insight, and foresight to the deliberations.
So turning to our CEO, Terry, you don't have a board just full of CEOs. What have you seen in terms of other levers in the boardroom to refresh that composition?
Well, I think one of the most effective tools we have is we maintain a robust skills matrix. Maryann alluded to that as well. And so it's really important so that as a board, we always have this sense of where we have strong expertise and the areas of where we need more support. We also actively engage the board and the governance committee in anticipating what we need in the future. So we're really intentional about planning and finding the right people with the right competencies who will help us fulfill our purpose as an organization. So our current board members, they have experience working for startups, Fortune 500 organizations and in academia. They have experience working in different business functions, including legal, corporate affairs, finance, operations and management, and technology. One of our members has a background serving in church and ministry and is a gifted marketer. I mean, he created a televised ministry. Another member co-founded a private equity firm. So he brings an investment lens and a finance lens to us. And many have served in a variety of leadership roles throughout their careers, from managing partner to executive vice president. And yes, we do have a couple of sitting CEOs on our board as well, from different industries. And so our board members, like Maryann said, I mean, I always say it kind of takes a village, you know, to run a company, and our board members are actively engaged in sharing their skills. So I'll give you an example. One of our board members, Lynn Crump-Kane, you know, a lengthy career as the executive vice president at McDonald's. And talk about a company that's focused on the customer experience and that franchisable model. She's actively asking us and helping us craft our future at Thriven so that we can get much better at delivering a great customer experience. And so people can expect how they'll be served when they visit Thriven. So in addition to our skills matrix, we are also intentional about feedback. And so every year our board receives peer feedback on their performance and committee effectiveness. And this process really does help make sure we're continuing to grow and develop as a board and becoming even more effective as an organization. And I would say, you know, I echo what Maryann said about the board chair at Amalgamated. Our board chair, she really does draw out the perspectives of each and every one of our board members. And so we as a board then continue to help this organization, this great organization of Thriven, really grow and develop and maintain its relevance for the future.
You know, that's such a good insight about that McDonald's experience, the customer experience, and getting insights and applying that in financial services. That's so valuable. So let me just continue along those lines, because we're talking about business outcomes, right? And we've seen many studies, Credit Suisse Research Institute, the Peterson Institute, McKinsey, so many are talking about greater financial performance, reputational performance. You know, you're serving your employees, your customers, your communities, and your shareholders or your investors. So how has diversity impacted the outcomes for you, Terry, at Thriven, and what you've seen with others in terms, because it is the business results we're looking for. Why have a diverse board? Why is it important? I think the studies show it is business outcomes. So what's your experience?
You know, our history, we've traditionally served really in the upper Midwest, and I would say in pockets of the coasts, but we're now doing business in places where we haven't traditionally had a legacy or a presence. And so embracing diversity and inclusion is essential if we want to bring Thrivent services to new places and build trust in those communities. So several years ago, we decided that the fastest growing Christian population in the United States was the Hispanic population. And as we started to really narrow our focus, we decided that we were going to target second and third generation Mexican Americans in San Antonio, Texas. And we became a part of the community. We actually hired from the community, and we started to build trust in that community. We called it Buen Camino because we really wanted to understand the needs of that community. And what's fascinating is today it's grown much beyond that. In fact, it's grown into an app that actually we call Money Canvas now. It's been piloted in San Antonio, in Indianapolis, and it's something that will actually help people with budgeting. And the research shows that right now it's saving families about $300 a month if they utilize this tool. And so that's something that we can then, we're now trying to figure out how do we scale that across the country and offer it, because at Thriven, you know, we do believe everyone deserves a plan, and this could be a part of that everyone deserves a plan. Because our purpose is, you know, we believe humanity thrives if we make the most of all we've been given. So how do we equip humanity with the tools they need in order to get and achieve that financial clarity so that they can lead lives full of meaning and gratitude? And this experiment that we had in San Antonio is now paying off and has produced this great tool that we can leverage and scale across the country.
That's incredible.
That's amazing. Yes. So again, your diverse thinking at the C-suite and boardroom table has created new venues and new avenues for you to go out and serve those communities. And therefore you should reap rewards from that, as well as your clients reaping rewards from that. That's an amazing story. Maryann, tell us your experiences in terms of how a diverse board or C-suite.
Well, that's kind of a hard act to follow.
It's okay. You'll do fine.
I don't have examples to that specific, so I'll give more general.
Right.
As we discussed earlier, studies have found that diverse board members are more likely to offer their perspectives, and their perspectives are more likely to be thoroughly considered and understood by other board members when there's a meaningful number of like individuals on the board. So for example, when it comes to looking at gender, there's a saying that says 1 woman is a token, 2 is a presence, and 3 is a voice. And that's that research that confirms what Terry talked about, the power of 3. I always talked about it as the magic of 3, but suffice to say, when you have 3 like individuals on a board, that's how you're really truly going to drive change and impact. What we've found also is there's often more than one answer to a problem. So having multiple perspectives ensures more meaningful strategic decisions, in my opinion. And by adding diverse directors to a board, you help expand the knowledge base, you help improve its culture, you can help make better decisions, and you can more effectively mentor and monitor management. So the bottom line is that the outcome of having a diverse board is better productivity, long-term sustainability, and improved brand and reputation, not to mention the positive social and cultural impact to your customers, to your employees, because they now see people that look like them in the boardroom in powerful positions, and that gives them the hope that they could aspire to those types of roles as well.
So for both of you, any parting words, advice to our audience today from 2 exceptional leaders that are really paving the way?
Well, I think diversity is just table stakes for good governance, and good governance provides the foundation for running a really exceptional organization. And so my encouragement is look for ways to bring new voices and perspectives to the table and really listen to their guidance. Being intentional about the makeup of your board is so important, and being intentional about diversity in all facets will benefit the organization tenfold.
And Maryann?
I'm going to go back to what Terry said earlier, that diversity is a journey, and it's not easy. And it doesn't happen unless there's a belief and a commitment to the aspiration of having a more diverse board. As Terry said, it requires discipline, it requires dedication, it requires a commitment of time, and most importantly, intentionality. But in my opinion, the rewards are well worth it. I've personally championed and advanced diversity in the boardroom by serving on and or recommending that I give candidates to the Nom and Gov committee. So while I may not be serving on that committee, whenever there's an opportunity for us to think about director succession planning, I always make sure that I recommend some exceptionally talented, diverse candidates. And yes, I only show them diverse candidates because I know whoever they're working with can provide other candidates. And I'm happy to say that in 2 different instances on 2 public company boards that I served on, those candidates that I recommended were ultimately added to the board. So that's what I call about being intentional. And it's not for everybody else. You have to live it and breathe it yourself. You have to lead by example. And as I said, the rewards are well worth it.
Well, I think for both of you, the DEI is in your DNA and in the DNA of your companies. It is an honor to know you both and worked with you both, but you truly are intentional, and that's the only thing that's going to change it. I will say that I have never presented a slate of candidates where we didn't have outstanding candidates, both men who are Caucasian as well as diverse candidates. I know you're doing that, and I know you're helping to push the needle with other companies and on the boards that you're on. So thank you, Teresa Rasmussen. Thank you, Maryann Bruce. Thank you for all of your insights today with us and sharing it with our audience.